In this video, we show you how to use the Seasonality Analyzer effectively, how to compare seasonal patterns, and how to analyze recurring price patterns yearly, monthly, and weekly. We also show you how to use the screener in comparison to quickly and easily find profitable patterns with a high hit rate. With the Analyzer tool, the screener, and the comparison tool, you can find the most profitable recurring price patterns, analyze their quality, and discover the best seasonal setups in just a few minutes. Let's look at how you can use these tools for your trading success. At the end of the video, you'll get more tips and tricks on how to increase your success with seasonal trading. Let's get started and dive deeper into the tools of the Seasonality Essential Service. Let's start with the Seasonality Analyzer, your key to precise recurring price patterns. The tool has a simple structure and is divided into two main areas. In the upper section, you can define your data and settings. Here, you specify the instrument and set the time period you want to analyze. The lower results area provides you with everything you need to make well-founded trading decisions. There, you will find the seasonal chart, the backtest, the recurring pattern of the U.S. election years, and detailed statistics to help you better understand the seasonal pattern. Let's start by selecting an instrument. To do this, you can enter the instrument's abbreviation or name. Another way to select an instrument is via the list function. Here, you will find lists of instruments such as shares, currencies, indices, commodities, and so on. In the list function, you will also find your watch list with your favorite stocks. By clicking on an entry, the analysis is carried out immediately. You can use the time settings to specify the period to be analyzed. You can define the length of the history. This value specifies how many years should be included in the analysis. The time span defines on which day of the year the analysis begins and ends. Important: the time span can also be set directly in the chart using drag and drop. Simply click on the chart with the mouse, hold down the left mouse pointer, drag to the day on which the analysis should end, and release the mouse pointer. Double-click on the chart to select the maximum time period. I would like to show you how to analyze and compare two instruments simultaneously. Our professional customers often use this function. With the plus button, the instrument field, you can select a second instrument. This means that all the data for both instruments is shown in the entire analysis so that you can make the most effective comparison possible. Later in the video, I will show you how to combine the list function with the comparison function, which is particularly effective when searching seasonal patterns. What other settings are possible? The analysis can be further refined using the three buttons next to the Create Analysis button. With the COVID button, you can include the COVID period from mid-February to the end of April 2020. A special highlight is the U.S. election year filter. It shows you how seasonal patterns behave in election years, a real game changer for your strategy. However, the other filters also help you make your analyses even more precise. I will come back to the filters later and give you a few very helpful tips on how you can further optimize your analyses. Let's take a look at the result of the analysis. You can see the most important data from the analysis in the first tab. The seasonal chart visualizes the recurring pattern of the selected instrument. The area highlighted in blue marks the analyzed period. You can use the buttons above the chart to display further information. The Today button shows the current day, and the Detrending button shows the seasonal pattern without a trend. This allows you to recognize the trends in the seasonal chart better. With the Election button, you can display the recurring pattern for the individual U.S. election years. I'll show you later in the video when this is particularly interesting, so watch the video to the end. Use the plus button to add individual years. This allows you to see how stable and reliable the pattern has been over the years. The Help button shows you how to set the period you want to analyze on the chart. In each chart or diagram, you can display and hide individual data series by clicking on the entries in the legend. Okay, let's move on to the data to the right of the chart. A backtest is created for each selected period and for each analysis you perform. The data shown here is part of the backtest. The backtest shows you exactly how the seasonal pattern has developed in the past. You can see at a glance what returns you would have achieved and how stable the pattern was even in difficult market phases. With this data, you can make informed decisions and assess the potential for a price movement. These key figures show you the historical profits and the stability of the seasonal pattern. They show you how high the profit or loss would have been and how often you would have lost or won. The small chart shows the results per trade. This allows you to see how well the pattern has developed in the past. Here is another important function for you. The Seasonality Analyzer calculates the backtest as either long or short trades. This means that if the seasonal pattern has an upward trend, long trades are implemented in the backtest. And if the seasonal pattern is downward, then short trades are implemented. The short trades can be recognized by the red bar. The distinction between long and short trades is particularly important for the key figures. The hit rates and the max and min values are different if the calculation is carried out with a long or short trade. With this functionality, you always get the best data for your decisions. You can find more information about the backtest in the Backtest tab. Here, you get a performance chart that shows how your portfolio would have developed if you had traded the recurring pattern one-to-one. The chart on the right shows you the results per trade, and you also get key figures again. In the lower section, you can see every single trade that was implemented in the backtest. Here you will find all the details used for the calculations in the backtest. Okay, let's move on to the election cycle tab. In the election cycle chart, you can see the seasonal chart for each election year. When we introduced this chart, it led to a lot of positive feedback from our customers. The chart helps you to recognize which election years are particularly good or bad for a trade. As we can see in our example, the SP 500 ETF performed exceptionally well in the election and post-election year. In this context, I would also like to briefly show that you can exclude individual election years from the analysis in the filter functions. The entire analysis is carried out using the filter function without the selected years. This helps you to carry out very detailed and precise analyses. This gives you detailed insights into the course of the respective recurring price patterns. Okay, now let's move on to the Statistics tab. Here we show you how the price has developed over different time periods. There is one chart per year, one per month, one per week of the year, and one chart for each day of the month. And of course, a chart for each day of the week. By clicking on the entries in the chart legend, you can display and hide additional data such as the average, the max and min value, and the max and min average. With this data, you can see if there are any further optimizations to make even better use of the current seasonal pattern for your trading. A tip from me: if calendar weeks 36 to 40 in the weekly chart are relatively poor, it might make sense to turn one seasonal pattern into two. The first pattern would then end in calendar week 35, and the second pattern would begin in calendar week 41. Let's move on to the last tab. The monthly statistics show the development of the individual months. The chart in the table shows statistical monthly values. This gives you a detailed insight into the performance on a monthly basis. In the chart, you can again show and hide additional data, such as the maximum and minimum values, by clicking on the chart legend. The table below shows the development of the individual months per year. The color coding gives you a quick overview of how stable the performance of a month is. Okay, now I want to show you how you can add analyses to your favorites or strategies. Let's say you have found a seasonal pattern you like and want to save. Then you can add it to your favorites using the Add button. With the Strategy button, you can add it to a strategy in the Portfolio Strategy Builder, where you can build several seasonal patterns as one strategy. The new Tab button allows you to open the currently loaded analysis in a new browser window, making it easier for you to implement different analyses in parallel without reloading everything in the browser each time. You can also use the link to save the analysis in your browser favorites. By clicking on the Help button at the top right, you can get instructions for the analyzer at any time. I would now like to show you another variant of the Seasonality Analyzer. We have implemented the current analysis in the analyzer for annual recurring patterns. However, as mentioned at the beginning, we can also analyze seasonal patterns monthly and weekly. Let's start with the monthly analysis and launch the Seasonality Analyzer for the monthly analysis. The idea of the monthly analysis is to look at recurring price patterns from month to month in detail. The structure for the monthly analysis is identical to what we have seen so far. We can enter instruments again and define a time period. Again, we can move the period using the slider or by dragging and dropping on the chart. The chart contains the days of the month and shows how the price has developed seasonally every month. The backtest key figures are on the right-hand side, and there are similar statistics and data again. The monthly statistics are particularly important in the monthly analysis. Here's a tip from us. If a month performs particularly poorly in the analysis, you can simply exclude it. This way you can see how the seasonal pattern would have developed without this outlier, and can make even more precise trading decisions. And the second tip for monthly analysis is to use the COVID-19 button to view the pattern without this data. This makes sense because this event is unlikely to be repeated, and the monthly view distorts the analysis due to the extreme price movements in the first 6 weeks. Okay, now let's move on to the weekly analysis. The principle is the same this time too. In this variant, the seasonal price patterns are analyzed every week. The chart shows a week from Monday to Friday, and you can also set the time period by drag and drop on the chart or use the slider. You get the same information again and can analyze the recurring pattern optimally. A tip from us. In the weekly analysis, it makes sense to always look at the pattern into trending mode. This makes it easier to recognize seasonal patterns. Here's a good example of a currency with a good weekly trend. The currency pair is the euro pound. Here we can see that the first days of the week show a negative seasonal pattern and that the last days of the week show a positive trend. Okay, let's move on to the next point. And this is one of the most important points of all. How do you find the most profitable seasonal patterns without spending hours searching? It's simple. Our screener searches through thousands of instruments every day and immediately shows you the top patterns with the highest hit rate. Try it out. It only takes 2 clicks. Then we switch to our powerful screener. This is your turbo for profitable trades. With just a few clicks, it searches through thousands of seasonal patterns every day and shows you the best results, including detailed backtests, so you can find in seconds what others need hours for. You can use the screener's filters to narrow down the search results according to your needs. Just like the Seasonality Analyzer, the result offers you different time options. You can search for annual, monthly, and weekly patterns. Another much appreciated benefit of the screener is that you can search your own watch lists. This allows them to narrow down the results even more precisely to their needs and makes their trading process even faster and more effective. The screener is a game changer for many of our customers and makes it easier to identify the best trades. There is another tool that you get with the Seasonality Essential service, and that is the Seasonality Comparison tool. With the comparison tool, you can compare several seasonal patterns at a glance. You can immediately see which instruments show the strongest seasonal trends and can make your trading decisions even more targeted. There are ready-made lists, and you can compile your own lists. The result is always a chart with all the seasonal patterns of the instruments in the list. The most substantial seasonal pattern is evaluated to the right of the chart. By clicking on the respective entry in the chart legend, you can show and hide individual values to compare exactly what you consider essential. In this way, you can quickly identify and incorporate the strongest seasonal patterns into your trading process. Clicking on the instrument takes you to the Seasonality Analyzer, where the respective instrument is loaded. In the second tab, you can see the minimum and maximum values of the individual instruments, including their respective years in which the minimum or maximum value was generated. Here's a tip from us. We use this tool in our trading process, which we implement as a top-down approach. In the process, we first identify the strongest indices and sectors. We then use these values as a filter in the Seasonality Screener to identify the strongest seasonal stocks in the index or sector. This approach allows you to combine strong patterns and increase your hit rate. As an example, we look at the U.S. indices and see that the NASDAQ index has the strongest recurring pattern. We then take a look at the individual U.S. sectors. For a better overview, I like to exclude the weakest seasonal patterns. In this case, that would be financial, energy, retail, and industrial. We then switch to the Seasonality Screener and filter the results by the NASDAQ and communications sector or the NASDAQ and technology sector. Then we look at the best results and select our trades. Here's another tip. If you are analyzing seasonal patterns in March, please exclude the COVID period because this event is unlikely to be repeated and distorts the data. Now let's move on to the tips that we think will help you achieve better results. The first tip is to compare market phases and seasonal patterns. Recurring patterns are often particularly strong in certain market phases. Experiment with historical data and find the best time period. Imagine that a seasonal pattern over the last 10 years was weak in 2018 and 2022, and the remaining years had excellent gains. In 2018 and 22, the indices were weak. Assuming that the coming year will be a strong index year, we can also assume a high probability that the next trade of this pattern will also be strong. Another tip from us is to compare recurring patterns. Comparisons are a good way to find the best trades. The seasonal comparison tool shows you which markets or sectors have the strongest patterns. And the Seasonality Analyzer can also compare two instruments. Another tip is to keep updating the trades that accumulate in your favorites list over time. Recurring patterns can change over the years. A regular backtest before each trade opening helps you check the stability of a pattern. Another tip is to pay attention to U.S. election years. Political cycles influence many markets significantly. Check if your pattern is stable in the current election years. For example, suppose a seasonal pattern is particularly weak in a particular election year and strong in another election year. In that case, you should look at which election year the next trade is in, and then you can better assess the probability of the outcome of the trade. Another tip is to combine seasonal patterns with other trading approaches. A strong recurring pattern becomes even more robust when it is confirmed by technical or fundamental analysis. Legendary traders such as Larry Williams primarily used seasonal trading. However, he always made sure that his trades were confirmed by technical analysis indicators. Another tip concerns the use of the screener. By combining the screener with an individual list, you can quickly find the best seasonal patterns for your preferred markets. And the last tip is to stay flexible. Just because a pattern has worked many times doesn't mean it will work identically every year. Be ready to adapt to new market conditions. Now it's your turn. Use the unique tools of our Seasonality Essentials program and find your best seasonal setups. Do you have any questions? Write to us in the comments or check out our other tutorials. You've seen how simple and effective our tools are. Now it's your turn. Log into Seasonality AI now, start your first analysis, and discover the most profitable seasonal patterns before the next trading season begins. Your trading success starts here. Don't wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. Start today and discover how easy and profitable trading with Seasonality AI can be.